Have you ever stopped to think that we live as if heaven were just a vague, distant, almost symbolic destination? But what if I told you that someone saw heaven, not in an abstract vision, but with details so real, so shocking, that even a ray of light made him cry out in awe? Well, that's exactly what happened to Don Bosco, a man who wasn't the theatrical mystic, nor a superficial devotee, but who was plucked from reality and thrown into a setting no work of art could ever reproduce. And the most impactful thing? He heard the music of souls. Yes, souls sing in heaven, and they sing lyrics you may never have stopped to hear. Perhaps you're there, tired of your busy life, full of doubts, trying to understand the meaning of it all. What if I told you that this vision of Don Bosco's came not just for him, but for me and for you too? Because what you're about to discover today isn't just a dream, but a truth that could turn your life upside down. An invitation to rethink everything. Your priorities, your view of faith, and even what you expect from eternity. Because heaven isn't what many people imagine. It's infinitely more. And when you understand what Don Bosco saw and heard, you'll realize that perhaps the life you're leading now is distracting you from what really matters. Don Bosco was no ordinary man. He possessed a rare gift. Dreams that were nothing like what we call dreams. They were vivid, almost tangible visions that took him to places few would dare imagine. On that night of December 6th, 1876, he had one of these celestial encounters. And the most impressive thing was not only what he saw, but the unshakable certainty that it was not a figment of his imagination. It was something experienced in spirit, with such clarity that it made even the senses seem too small to contain such grandeur. Imagine waking up in a place where time seems to exist no more, and the logic of matter makes no sense. That's what happened to Don Bosco. He was standing on a silent hill, enveloped by an immense blue that was neither sea nor sky. A pure, almost solid blue that conveyed calm just by looking at it. And you, preoccupied with the hustle and bustle of the day, with notifications that never stop arriving, have you ever stopped to consider that there's a dimension where the soul rests on a level you've never experienced? Don Bosco's vision wasn't just spiritual, it was pedagogical. An invitation to the inner silence that modern life suffocates. Many today live trapped in the concrete realm of what they can see, touch, and control. But Don Bosco's experience opens a window to the invisible that sustains everything. You don't need to be a mystic to open yourself to this. A simple habit of contemplation would be a good start. Turning off your phone for 10 minutes, walking in silence, meditating with the Psalms. All of these are practices that sharpen the spiritual senses and make the soul more sensitive to what God wishes to reveal. Don Bosco wasn't led there by chance. There is something about this encounter that prepares us for what comes next, something that stirs all the senses, including hearing. As soon as Don Bosco began walking through that mysterious place, he realized that everything around him was imbued with a beauty that defied any human definition. It wasn't just beautiful. It was immaculate, untouchable, as if the Creator himself had painted every detail by hand, with paints that don't exist in this world. The flowers seemed to have life. The colors had a soul in the air. Oh, the air vibrated as if in continuous prayer. Everything there exuded a kind of perfection that didn't tire the eyes, but healed them. It was as if every detail of that scene existed to remind human beings that there is a place where everything, absolutely everything, is in perfect harmony. But then came the sound, and then, my friend, things took on a new dimension. Music began to echo out of nowhere, or perhaps from everything. It didn't come from an instrument, nor from a specific voice, but from an invisible choir of souls. It was soft yet steady, simple yet majestic. Don Bosco said it was impossible to describe what he heard, because that music touched the soul like an embrace of light. And just think how interesting. If today you feel moved listening to a song that marked your life, imagine listening to a melody composed by heaven itself. That wasn't just sound, it was a code of eternity. And here's a provocation. What have you been listening to in your daily life? Because if music is capable of touching such deep dimensions of the soul, perhaps you need to rethink what you've been letting into your ears. Try starting by listening to music that uplifts your mind, like Gregorian chants, sacred hymns, or even movie soundtracks that inspire goodness. Replace the noise of chaos with sounds that bring peace. Do this for a week and observe how your mind and heart begin to tune into another frequency, because it was on the same frequency that Don Bosco heard the voices of souls, and it is there that the next scene begins to form with familiar faces and others not so familiar. Don Bosco barely had time to absorb the divine music when he began to realize he was not alone. A crowd began to form in the distance. They were souls. Hundreds, thousands. A crowd that moved with almost invisible lightness, as if they weren't even touching the ground. And most impressive, they were all happy. Not the forced happiness of social media, but a genuine, pure joy that overflowed effortlessly. It was as if each of them had achieved what, here on earth, we spend our entire lives trying to achieve and often seek in the wrong places. Amidst that heavenly crowd, Don Bosco began to recognize some faces. They were young. Many had passed through his schools, his oratories, his care. But here, they were no longer just students or disciples. They were witnesses of eternity. And among them all, someone emerged who made Don Bosco's heart race. Dominic Savio. The boy he had so lovingly mentored now appeared before him, with a crown of roses on his head, his hair shining, and a sparkle in his eyes that no photograph could capture. It was a reunion that seemed to have been prepared by heaven itself, a reminder that work done with love is never in vain. This part of the dream holds a powerful lesson. You never know the magnitude of your gesture. Sometimes a word, a piece of advice, a listening ear can be the beginning of an eternal transformation in someone's life. And if you think you have no influence, think again. Who are you shaping today? Children, students, co-workers? Have you ever considered that you could be the Don Bosco in someone's life? Those young people were there because of a man who never gave up on them. And this sets the stage for a revelation that goes beyond the visible, that, however perfect, was not yet heaven. Even faced with so much beauty, peace, and joy, Don Bosco could not contain his curiosity. He looked around in wonder and asked Domingo Savio, "Is this paradise?" The answer came with the calm of someone who knows secrets we cannot yet comprehend. Domingo explained that no, all of that, as enchanting, pure, and radiant as it was not yet paradise. It was merely a foretaste, a natural happiness, amplified by God, as if it were a rehearsal for eternity, a prelude to glory, a taste of what is to come. Powerful, right? We can barely stand the beauty of nature here on earth. Imagine heaven, then? This explanation changes everything. The happiness there was real, but it was not definitive. It was like a trailer before the main film, a light turn on before the show begins. This shows us something very profound. Many of the joys we experience here can indeed be good and true, but they are not the end of the story. They are signs. They are traces of the divine. It's like when you feel peace watching a sunset, or when you cry with a sincere prayer. God allows us to taste crumbs of eternity to remind us that there is an even greater fullness. And that's why we can't be content with almost. The soul knows there's something more, and won't rest until it finds it. If you've ever had that feeling that something is missing, even though you have everything, maybe now it makes sense. It's not madness. It's longing for heaven. It's the spiritual memory of something we haven't yet fully experienced, but which already calls to us. The world tries to fill this void with achievements, status, immediate pleasures, but only God can fill what is his. Dominic Savio knew this. He lived as one who saw beyond the visible, and his explanation opened in Don Bosco, and now in us, a new understanding, one that prepares us to see a light, but not just any light. The conversation between Don Bosco and Domingo Savio continued with even more depth. He wanted to understand where so much light, so much beauty that it almost blinded, came from. His curiosity was legitimate. After all, if this wasn't yet paradise, what was true divine light? Domingo then explained something that breaks all limits of human logic. The light Don Bosco saw was merely a reflection, a purified version of natural light. Yes, you read that right. It was as if God had taken what we know, like sunlight, and raised it to the 1,000th power. And even then, it still wasn't the ultimate glory. Don Bosco then asked, "May I see the light of paradise?" Domingo hesitated, and rightly so, but he allowed him to see just a ray, a thread of heavenly light, just to get an idea. That minimal contact was enough for Don Bosco to scream, close his eyes, and nearly fall. The brightness was so intense it blinded even the soul. He said it was millions of times brighter than the sun, and yet it was nothing more than a fragment. Can you imagine that? It's like trying to look at the glory of God with eyes of flesh. Impossible. And even what he saw was enough to mark the soul forever. Now stop and think. If a single ray of light from heaven is enough to shake a saint, why do we treat eternity with such indifference? We shield our eyes from the sun with sunglasses, but we live as if we could face God's light without any preparation. You can't play with the sacred. And we also can't forget that there is preparation, an inner refinement, to be able to endure this glory. Want an exercise? Start seeking more light through truth. Read a passage from the Bible a day. Reflect on who you are. Confess your faults and reconcile with God. Because what comes after this light is the essence of eternity. Domingo Savio looked into Don Bosco's eyes and said something that seemed simple, but holds the greatest mystery of existence. In paradise, we enjoy God. That's all. Nothing else matters. And therein lies the secret. Heaven is not a place of material rewards, nor some kind of spiritual resort full of perks. Heaven is God, being with Him, living in Him, being absorbed by a love that never ends, never cools, never fails. It's like diving into an ocean of light, where there is no more fear, pain, or loneliness. Only presence, only plenitude, only eternity. But this is where many people are mistaken. Many seek heaven as if seeking a prize, when in reality, heaven is a relationship. It's not about merit, it's about communion. And if this communion doesn't begin here, doesn't begin in life, then how will anyone want to experience it after death? If you still think God is just a religious concept, perhaps it's time to look to Him as a father, as a real presence, as someone who walks beside you every day, even when you don't realize it. And when this relationship blossoms, heaven begins to blossom within you. So the question is, have you been enjoying God or just talking about Him? Because those who enjoy life live differently. They value what truly matters, losing their taste for petty squabbles, vanity, and haste. They begin to savor life calmly, like someone already rehearsing for eternity. And look, it's not just talk. It's real. Start transforming your time with God into something alive. Read spiritual books that nourish the soul, like The Imitation of Christ or The Soul of Every Apostolate. Meditate in silence. Serve someone in secret. Because the more you unite with God here, the more prepared you become to live what Don Bosco saw. And now that you've heard all this, stop and think. What is this vision of Don Bosco trying to tell you? Because deep down, this story isn't just about him. It's about all of us. About this busy life we live, where we rarely stop to contemplate what truly matters. About how we exchange the eternal for the immediate, the divine for the fleeting. Don Bosco saw a little piece of heaven. And yet, this little piece was so grand, so indescribable, that he could barely bear it. Now imagine, if a ray of light from heaven was enough to make you cry out in wonder, what must it be like to be fully before God? Dominic Savio said, "In paradise we enjoy God. That's all. And that alone is everything. It's not about rewards, possessions, or recognition. It's about being with the one who created us, who loves us infinitely, and who prepared for us something no eye has ever seen, no ear has ever heard, no heart has ever imagined." And perhaps that's why Don Bosco wasn't afraid, but thirsty. Thirsty for this light. Thirsty for this music. Thirsty for this love. And this thirst needs to be born within us too. So, if this story touched something within you, don't ignore it. Don't postpone it. Holiness is a real, concrete, possible path. Eternity awaits us, but begins now with the choices we make today. Don Bosco didn't bring us a story. He left us a calling. And it's up to each of us to decide whether we will continue merely listening or whether we will, finally, live as those who desire to sing this song with their souls for all eternity.